Hey everyone, thank you for joining in. We're just waiting a few more minutes to see if a few more web viewers are going to join in on the presentation. So we'll get started in just a few minutes here. Thank you so much again for joining in. Now is a great time to log into your account if you haven't already done so. Hi everyone, just going to wait a few more minutes before we get started, see if a few more folks are going to join in with us today. I was just mentioning now is a great time to log into your account if you haven't already done so. Just going to wait one more minute here, see if any more web viewers are going to join in today on the presentation, and then we're going to jump right in here in just 1 minute. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us for Clear Estimates in Practice. My name is Michael. I'm with the customer success team here at Clear Estimates. Now, if you've joined us for this web series before, some of this might be a little bit of recap for you. This series is all about showing you how you can use Clear Estimates to estimate different types of projects. Now, in the past, we've done walkthroughs like this for bedrooms, for bathrooms, and in this episode, we'll be walking through a really simple deck build estimate example for you using Clear Estimates. So for those of you who are just getting started, this is going to be a really nice introduction to Clear Estimates overall. We will be estimating a 300 square foot floating deck example estimate today, so this should be a great demo if you're just getting started with the software. Some quick housekeeping first. We are going to be covering a lot in a really short time today, so we will have some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So as we go along, feel free to add in your questions using the chat feature on the right side of your screen. If anything does come to mind, just send in your questions. We'll be answering as many of those as we can toward the end. Also, this presentation is being recorded, so if you miss anything or if you have to duck out, don't worry. All attendees are going to receive an email with a recording link after the presentation. So this will be on our YouTube channel as well for your reference, and you'll get that recording link in your email. Plus, there are tutorials on our Help Center that are going to explain a lot of what we're going to cover today. So if you do have to duck out or if you miss anything, don't worry. Now, if you're having any issues with the presentation quality, if the screen is a little blurry or if the connection seems slow, there should be a gear icon right in the bottom right corner of your screen. You can use that to adjust the quality. If you have any issues with sound or anything like that, just try to refresh your browser. Usually that'll bring you right back into the presentation and tends to clear up any issues. Lastly, as I mentioned, we will be doing a few more of these. So if you do have any suggestions on topics you'd like to see covered in future webinars, just go ahead and add those in the chat. We'd love to hear your suggestions. So let's go ahead and start off with our agenda. Now, as I mentioned, some of you are just getting started, so we do like to start these off with a little bit of quick background about clear estimates, and then we're going to get into a few basics. So just setting up your account and getting ready for your first estimate. And from there, we're going to estimate our deck example. So we're going to go through each step of the process. We're going to show you where to find deck pricing in the system. We'll show you how to add in your parts, and we'll talk about setting up the contract and then sending out your proposal. So we'll even have some time to show you some time-saving features such as the pre-built deck templates that we have available. So a little bit later in the presentation, we'll be talking about the templates that are available for decks. And then at the very end, we will have some time for Q&A. So let's go ahead and just start off with a little bit of background about what Clear Estimates is. It's an estimating software specifically for contractors built to estimate residential remodeling work. So things like kitchens and bathrooms and additions. And it also includes pricing for things like decks and porches and landscaping and plenty more. So if you do estimate work like this, you have probably a good idea of how time consuming that can be. So what Clear Estimates does is it makes that process much faster by offering you a really nice library of cost data covering everything from kitchens and baths and additions and all the way to specialty trades, so roofing and concrete and decks and so on. And what's great about these costs is that you're not looking at a national average. You're actually looking at specific local pricing from your area of the country. So when you log in, you're going to set up material costs for your area, and you can use those costs to build up your estimate. And these costs are updated automatically, so it makes it really easy to put an estimate together using the most accurate numbers. Once you assemble your estimate, Clear Estimates automatically generates a professional proposal that you can send directly to the homeowner. So the tool is built to streamline your estimating and make the whole process much smoother for you. So with that all in mind, let's go ahead and dive in. So we're going to head into Clear Estimates now. Now, if you haven't set up an account, you can do that on the main site, clearestimates.com. There will be a little pricing link at the top where you can start a free trial. Once you fill in your info and submit, then you'll receive an email where you can set up a password. And from there, you can log into your account. So if you are logging in for the first time, you should be seeing something that looks a lot like this. So this is the home page. It's really the first place you're taken when you log in, and it's essentially your dashboard for recent estimates you've worked on. So you'll see your 5 most recent projects listed here. As a brand new customer, you'll just see a number of sample estimates. Keep in mind, you can click the titles of these estimates and open those up and take a look at how those look, and you'll see there's even one for a deck. So before we jump in here, I'd just like to go over a little bit of the layout of the tool here. So up in the top left, you'll see that there's these 4 buttons: Home, Customers, Projects, and Reports. These buttons are what you'll use when you're working on a specific estimate. So Home and Customers is where you can create estimates. Customers is really where you're going to manage your client list, and any of your backlog of estimates will all be stored there. The Projects page, we're going to be spending a lot of time there today. This is where we're actually going to build the estimate. Reports is where we can generate proposals, set up invoices, even set up the contract language that's going to appear on the document. So that all takes place there. So you just want to think of these 4 buttons as they relate to a specific project you're working on. And then up in here in the top right corner, you'll see these blue buttons, and these are kind of your account settings. So parts, templates, options, and update. Parts is where you're going to manage your library of costs. This is also where you can add in your own costs if you'd like. Templates is where you can manage template settings. So we do provide over 150 pre-built templates, and we're constantly adding more in. So you can always manage those settings there. This is also where you can create your own templates. Options is where we're going to manage account settings, set up integrations. This is also where you can manage your subscription. And update is where you can update your pricing to a different location. So if you do want to use costs from a different locality, you could do that using update. Now, as a new customer logging in, it might be a little tempting to click this new project button and get started on your first project right away. But before we do that, we do want to just take a quick look at our company info, make sure all of that's set up correctly. And I always like to take a look at the labor rates in case we do want to make any adjustments there. So to do that, we're going to head up to the options tool up here in the top right corner. You'll see this looks like a checkbox. That's going to take us right to our company data page. Now, a lot of these details should have been filled in when you were first signing up. So you can see I've already added in my company name, my address, city, state, and zip. But if anything's missing, it's always a good idea to kind of go through this page and fill out any additional information. All of this contact info is going to be showed on the top of our proposal for our client. So for example, if I wanted to add in a license number, I could do that here. Down below, we can add in additional phone numbers or email. If you have a social media handle, usually this other field here is a great place to add that in. So I always just like to fill in as much of this information as possible, and then we're just going to go ahead and click Save after any changes we make here. Now, one thing I do want to do here really quick is set up my company logo. So you're going to see there's an option for this right up here at the top. So I can set my company logo. I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and head into my drive here, and I have a logo that I want to use on my proposal. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And what that'll do is it's going to stage the logo right here. You'll see this little document. So all we need to do to complete the import, scroll down, click the blue Save. That's going to import the logo in. So now we see the logo up here in the top right. There is some settings for the position. So if we want to justify that logo left, center, or right, we can do that. We can also set up a custom size for our logo if we choose. You can always do that from this drop down here. And then again, you just want to click Save after any changes you make there. So all of that's looking good. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at our labor rate. So we're going to come over here to the labor rate editor. And what we're seeing when we click the labor rate editor are all the suggested labor rates specific to your location that are provided by Clear Estimates. So you're seeing we're providing rates for truckers, general laborers, tile setters, concrete workers, carpenters, and so on. And these are all sourced from your specific location. These are all pre-markup and pre-tax rates here. What's really great about these rates is that all of these different labor rates are tied back to the 15,000 plus line items that are available in your library. So it's never a good idea to delete these rates. Instead, if you do want to adjust anything about these rates, just click into that rate column here and make adjustments. So if I pay a truck driver $25 an hour, I can just click into that rate column, type that in here, and go ahead and click Save Changes, and that will update the rate for any parts that are going to be using that rate in the estimate. You can also kind of reference rates from different locations. So if you click this link up here at the top, it's going to show you a spreadsheet with all of the suggested labor rates for all the locations we serve. So this is available for any client. You can always click that link and you'll see all of those 11 different rates up here at the top. You can find your location here on the left, and you can reference these rates and copy them back into Clear Estimates if you'd like. So you can always just kind of click into that rate column, paste those in, and make adjustments there. So I would take a quick look at those before we start our first project. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and use all these suggested rates. And we're going to actually head back to our home page now and go ahead and get started on our first estimate. So here on the home page, as I mentioned before, this is actually where we're going to build, where we're going to start up our new project. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and click the New Project button. That's going to pull up a little dialog box where it's going to ask for information about your homeowner or your client. So in this case, I'm just going to create a customer for myself, John Homeowner. I'm just going to say he is John at homeowner.com. So it will require an email address. You'll want to make sure you add one in. This email is going to be where we're going to send the proposal. So when you send it from the software, it's going to go directly to your customer's email here. And then we're going to go ahead and give this project a title. We're just going to say deck estimate. And the project description down here at the bottom is a good place to put any additional information. So in this case, I'm just going to say deck build, 300 square feet in cedar. And then we're going to go ahead and click continue. So when we do that, Clear Estimates is going to ask us a question. It will say, will this project contain multiple components? So it's not uncommon to have an estimate, let's say, with a kitchen and a bath in the same project. So what components do is allow you to organize those different sections of your project. Since we're just going to be doing kind of a simple deck estimate today, we're not going to use components. There is tutorials on our Help Center that'll explain how to use components. In this case, we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to say no, not right now, and we're going to click continue. And that's going to take us over to our projects page. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is where you're going to spend the majority of your time in Clear Estimates. This is where we're going to build the estimate, make any changes to the estimate while it's underway. So just a little bit of layout here on the projects page. Keep in mind up here in bold letters, you'll see which project you have open. And then down below, we're seeing the actual title we just added in, as well as our description. So keep in mind, if you want to make adjustments to that title, you can do that. You can just click into this box and make changes. Same with the project description. And then it'll also let you know which customer you're working with right here. Now over on the right side, you'll see these 4 blue buttons. These are your various tools you're going to use when you're building the estimate. In the More dropdown, you'll have options to make copies of the project, to archive it. You can also create invoices on the fly from this dropdown and set up a project status. So there's options for that there. Send to customer is what we're going to use when it's time to send the document to our client. So we can just click send to customer and then send report to customer. This eyeball is what we're going to use to preview the estimate. So before you email that out, always a good idea to preview it first. So you can do that from view report and print to PDF. An export project is for more internal records of the project details. So you can export that to PDF, MS Word, or Excel. If you're a pro user, this is also where you can integrate with Buildertrend, and really any client can export to QuickBooks here as well. Just below that, we have the part search interface. This is where you're going to find parts to add to your estimate. Let me back up here just for a second. We'll talk about what a part is. A part is really just a specific line item you're adding to your estimate. Any individual scope of work specific to your project, it can be thought of as an individual part. So parts contain material and labor costs, and they're used to price out your estimate. So a part is essentially a building block for your estimate. And we're providing a library of over 15,000 line items or parts that you can use to build the project. So you can search for parts by name using this search bar. You can also click Browse Part Library to open up the full catalog of pricing. Create Custom Part is how you can add in your own line item. So that's great if you want to add in something very quickly, or if there's something you can't find in the library, you can always create your own parts as well. And a template is essentially a pre-built list of parts, a pre-built estimate that you can use as a starting point. Templates are built to sort of save you time. So it kind of gets you 80 or 90% of the way through with your project, and then you can tailor it for that specific project. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later as well. Down below is the project parts list. This is where we'll see the contents of our estimate once we get started here. And then down below that, we have the markup tool. This is how you're going to account for your own profit and overhead. So that's all based on percentages. You can add on an extra percentage for material, for labor cost, and any subcontractor cost in your estimate. Keep in mind that all of the material costs we include are pre-tax and pre-markup. So you can use this to account for your markup. And down at the very bottom, you'll see miscellaneous items. This is how we'll account for sales tax. And then right here in the middle, we'll see 2 little boxes here for components. That's what we were talking about in the beginning to organize your estimate by phase. We won't be getting too deep into that today. However, there is also this alternates box, which is used to show your customer some options on the proposal. It can also be used to create standalone change orders. So we will be covering that a little bit today. We're going to show the customer a couple of different options for a deck. So we'll be talking about that a little later. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and dive into this deck estimate. To facilitate this presentation today, I did go ahead and create a deck takeoff. So basically what I did is I went through my plans and I got all my quantities all squared away, all of the measurements for my deck. So these are the specs for my deck, and we're going to be using this to estimate the project today. This is going to be a 300 square foot average grade cedar deck floating. And what we're going to do is we're going to build the deck, and then we're going to come back a couple weeks later and we're going to stain the deck for our client. So as you can see, we have a lot of work to do here. We have a little bit of project prep to knock out. We have a good amount of framing we need to estimate. We're going to be installing a cedar deck surface. We're going to be adding a railing, some steps. And then, like I mentioned, we're going to come back and stain the deck later on for the client. And then at the end, we have a little bit of debris to clean up and some cleanup that we're going to be passing those costs along to the homeowner as well. So let's go ahead and get started with this first line here in my takeoff. So I know I need to get a set of plans drafted up here. I've estimated this is going to be somewhere in the ballpark of a $12,000 to $14,000 project cost. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and price out these plans in my estimate. So I'm going to come back to the projects page here, and using the search bar, I'm going to find some parts for plans. So when we click that, it's going to pull up this box where we can search for parts by name here. So we're just going to say plans. And that's going to pop up everything we have related to plans in the entire system. So you see there's no shortage of pricing here. A lot of it kind of divvied up by cost. And again, this is going to be about a $12,000 to $14,000 project cost. So we can actually use these drop downs at the top to get more specific here if I only want to take a look at parts in project preparation. We are going to talk about categorization of parts here in just a moment. But this just kind of allows us to filter based on our needs here. So if I scroll through here, let's see if we can find a $12,000 to $14,000 project cost. And I'm not seeing that pop right up. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to click this Browse Parts button right up here. And that's going to allow us to browse the full library of costs. So I'm going to use my drop down here and we're going to find Project Preparation. This is where we're going to find all parts for plans in the system. And then I'm going to use this middle drop down to isolate just parts for plans. And then I should have a little easier time finding that. So there it is, Plans On-Site Survey, $12,000 to $14,000 project cost. So that's just what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and click that part here. And then when we click the line item we want to add to our estimate, it's going to pop open this box where we can tell Clear Estimates how much of something we need. So we're going to do that using this blue bar here where we can tell Clear Estimates the quantity. Now in this case, it's a set of plans, so we really only just need one. So I'm just going to keep that at 1. It's going to give us our costs breakdown over here on the right. And we're just going to go ahead and add that part to the estimate. So let's close out of there and take a look at what we did. We just added a single part for plans. So we see that listed here. And then if I go back to my takeoff, the next thing I need to do is pull a permit for this project. Again, around a 12 to 14K project cost. So I'm going to come back into Clear Estimates. And this time I'm just going to click Browse Part Library. We'll jump right into that. When you click that, it's going to show you some suggested searches. These are just popular search terms here. Below, it's going to show you some popular part categories or things that might be related to your business type. So in this case, it's suggesting parts for deck surface. There's also some suggested templates here for decks, and then some getting started guides. But really, when you're in Browse Part Library, you just want to focus on these blue drop downs up here at the top. This is going to allow us to navigate through the library of costs. So as I mentioned before, everything in Clear Estimates is categorized on a very basic level by scope of work. You'll also notice that it's roughly chronological to the way you'd be doing the work in your actual project. So we're starting off with prep work, then we're getting into things like demolition, and then further down, we're getting into the building portion. So the concrete, the framing, the roofing and the gutters, the windows, and so on. So in this case, once again, I'm going to go ahead and click Project Prep. That's what we're working on right now. Keep in mind that under every main category of parts, there are subcategories to get more specific. Obviously, there's a lot of pricing in each of these categories, so we can use this middle drop down to get a little more specific. Once again, we're just going to go ahead and grab building permit fees. And you'll see everything is sort of based by pricing tier here. So we're going to go down and we're going to find our part for 12 to 14K project cost. We're going to grab that building permit fee here. And again, I just need one of those, so we're just going to leave it at 1. And we're going to add the part in. The next thing I want to do is add in some travel costs. So I need about $150 in travel time and fuel. I am going to be passing those costs along to the homeowner. So I'm going to come back into my project here. We do have parts in the system for travel cost, but I think this is a good opportunity to show you how you can very quickly add in your own line item. So I know what I want to charge for that travel. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create Custom Part here. This allows us to just very quickly set up a line item and add it to the projects. So what's required here is a category. I'm going to go ahead and put that in that same category for project prep. I'm going to call this my travel costs. And then down below, we can set up a material or a labor cost. In this case, it's not going to matter really too much how I categorize that, since it's not going to differentiate the material versus the labor for the client. So I'm just going to set that up as a $150 material cost. And we're going to go ahead and save the part. And you can see how quickly we're able to just very, very easily add in our own line item there. So great, that knocks out all of our prep work. So before we jump into the framing, let's just take a quick look at the proposal so you can get an idea of how this works here. So we're going to click View Report and Print to PDF, and we're just going to take a quick look at the proposal itself. So here's my proposal. We see that logo, it's already imported into the proposal. I have my client's information and my information. Down below is some example legal language. We're going to show you how to customize this here in a little bit. And then below that, we see the contents of the estimate that we've added so far. So we've just priced out some plans, some permits, and some travel costs. It's giving us a subtotal and a project cost here. We'll see that everything is going to be kind of organized by cost type here on the estimate. So it's going to give us the cost category and then the individual line items below. And then down at the bottom, we have a nice place our customer can sign the agreement. So that's looking good so far. I will need to come back and do some modifications to that contract language, but we'll talk about that here in just a moment. So let's just go ahead and dive right into this deck framing. So again, we're going to be taking some time here to show you where you can find these various costs in the library. We're going to start off with digging some footings. So we do need to dig some 36-inch deep footings. We're going to be adding concrete tubes. And then the next thing we'll do after that is fill the tubes with concrete. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to head back into the projects page here. Once again, I'm going to click Browse Part Library. And there is a whole section of costs specific to deck parts here. So I could click this drop down and scroll down to 18 decks and porches, but I think it would be easier if I just filter using a term here. So I'm just going to type in decks. That's going to very quickly pull up my decks and porches category. And when we click that, it's going to show us all of the different costs included in that category. So once again, there's a lot of different pricing in here. So we're going to use this middle drop down to get more specific. And in this case, we need deck framing. So we're going to go ahead and click deck framing. And then using this part groups drop down over on the far right, I can get even more specific. So in this case, I want to price out deck posts. We're going to find parts for footings here in deck posts. So if I scroll through this list a little bit, I should find some parts related to dig footing. So here is a number of them. We can see they're in different depths with different specifications here for the concrete tube. So we're going to go ahead and grab this part here, dig footing up to 36 inches deep, and place a 10-inch concrete tube. We're going to pour concrete into that concrete base here. So this is great because it actually kind of knocks out two of my tasks here. You see I have a part for, or I have a line in my takeoff here for digging the footing and another for filling the tube with concrete. So this kind of knocks out both of those tasks in a single line. So a lot of parts are like that, set up as assemblies where they're really just giving you the total material and labor cost for a specific task here. So let's go ahead and grab that dig footing part. Now on my takeoff, I've defined the quantities I need already. So I already have those measurements and quantities all set up. And I know I need 13 of these footings for this deck. So I'm going to come back in here. And here is the part all ready to be priced out. And all it needs to know is my quantity. So in this case, it is priced out by the piece, which is common for something like a footing where you'd only, you define how many you need. So we're going to go ahead and type in 13 footings here. We're going to price out our footings using costs from our specific location. And keep in mind, if you do want to make any adjustments to the costs, you could do that using these calculators. I'm going to go ahead and go with the suggested price here, and we're going to go ahead and add that part in. So moving right along here, the next thing I need to do is install cedar posts in that concrete. So we're looking at 4x4 posts, 8 feet tall. So I'm going to come back into this part search. And if I scroll up a little bit, I should be able to find those different types of posts. And right here is just the part I'm looking for. So install cedar posts 4x4, 8 feet tall on top of existing footings. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. And once again, we need 13 of those. So we're going to go ahead and price out 13 of those posts, and we're going to add the part in. So the next thing I need to do as far as framing is joists. I have about 300 square feet of joists that I need to install. These are going to be 16-inch on center. These are going to be 2x10 doubled all sides. So what I'm going to do in this case, back here in the part search, I'm going to go ahead and grab my middle drop down, and we're going to, we're actually going to grab this drop down here. And just underneath deck posts, we're going to find deck joists. And then we have a variety of different types of joists here. What you'll notice about these joists is that they are all priced out based on the square footage here. So many of our parts contain waste factors that allow you to really dial in the cost based on the square footage of the install area here. So in some cases, you'll see some of these parts say up to 80 square feet, up to 50 square feet. That really is going to account for those sizes. So you really just want to use, you really want to read these descriptions and use the appropriate part here. So if it's up to 80 square feet, let's say it was a 70 square foot deck surface, and you needed 70 square feet of joists, you would use that part. In this case, we're looking at about 300 square feet. So I'm actually going to use this part for over 180 square feet. So we're going to go ahead and grab that, and then we're going to tell Clear Estimates how many square feet of joists we'll be installing. We're going to go ahead and type in 300 square feet. That's going to price that out for us. And again, we're going to add the part in. So next thing we need to do is install a deck band. We have a cedar deck band. This is going to be a 1x10. So I'm going to come back in here. We're going to click this part group drop down again, and we're going to isolate parts for deck band. The top option here is for cedar 1x10. We have some other options in here as well. We're going to go ahead and grab that cedar deck band. 1 by 10, and then I'm just going to reference my measurements here. So it's 60 linear feet of deck band. So same idea here. We're just going to go ahead and click into our quantity column and tell Clear Estimates we need 60 linear feet of that. Just a quick side note, always pay attention to these unit types. These are going to help you kind of price out the part in a way that makes sense. So some parts are priced by the piece, some are priced by the square foot. Linear foot's common for something that goes around the perimeter of something. Cubic yards is handy for earthworks or excavation. So always try to pay attention to the unit type here. So again, this is 60 linear feet, and we're going to go ahead and add that part in. So that knocks out all of our framing. So we're moving right along here. So very quickly, we're able to assemble this estimate. So next thing I need to do is install my cedar deck surface. So I have a 300 square feet cedar deck surface. This is going to be 5 1/4 by 6, nailed and straight. So let's go ahead and find that. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and grab this middle drop down and switch this over to deck surface. And then using the part groups for deck surface, I can actually kind of isolate my list of parts here based on the type of deck surface here. So in this case, it's going to be nailed and it's going to be cedar. So we're going to go ahead and grab this option here. And then I just have a few options, so it makes it much easier to look through this list of parts. So here's 5 1/4 by 6, straight and nailed. Pretty sure that's exactly what we needed. So let's go ahead and grab that part here. And then we're going to add in our measurements. So again, this is a 300 square foot deck surface. So very easily, we can just add in 300 square feet. That's going to price out this deck surface for us, and we're going to add the part in. So let's take a quick look at what we've done here in the estimate so far. So obviously we've added in all of our project prep items, and then you'll see that Clear Estimates is going to organize it based on cost type. So we see all of that framing we just added in, as well as the surface. It's all organized here under decks and porches. So this is going to make it really clear for the client on the proposal what costs relate to what type of work here. So next we need to install a deck railing. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. We have a 42-inch tall deck railing. This is going to be an average grade deck railing, and I've measured about 54 linear feet that we need to install. So we're going to come back up here. Once again, I'm going to click Browse Part Library. Keep in mind, we could search for these parts by term if we want. In this case, just to kind of show you where to find these prices, I'm just going to use Browse Part Library. Once again, we're going to head into Decks and Porches right here. Using the middle dropdown, I'm going to find parts specific to deck railing. And then using part groups, I could even isolate a little bit further. So let's take a look at my deck takeoff one more time and just make sure we understand what we're adding in here. So this is going to include pickets. So I need to both price out the railing and the pickets, both 54 linear feet. So we're going to come back over here. I have this drop down here where it's telling me the different types of railings we have available. And actually, we do want deck railing with pickets, cedar, so we're going to go ahead and click that right there. And then it's giving us just a few parts to choose from. Now, in my case, this is 42 inches tall, and it's an average grade deck railing. So you'll notice that some parts in the library are kind of sorted by quality of materials. So there'll be economy, average, premium grade. That's great for, a little bit on the lower cost side, or if they're using, a little more of a pricey option, you could do that as a premium cost. In this case, it's just going to be average grade materials. So we're going to go ahead and click that option. And what's great, again, when we were talking about parts being assemblies, this actually includes both the railing and the pickets all in one cost here. So we're going to go ahead and click that part. And how many did we say we need? 54 linear feet. So we're going to go ahead and add that in here. That's going to price out our deck railing with the pickets, and we're going to add the part in. So we're moving right along here. The next thing we need to do is the deck steps. So we have cedar steps. These are going to be 4 feet wide. It's going to be an open riser with a 12-inch tread depth there. So we're going to come back into Clear Estimates one more time. I'm going to grab this middle drop down. We're going to find deck steps. I'm going to get more specific using this last drop down here. We're going to find cedar steps. And I have an option for open riser or cedar riser, and they're 4 feet wide. So we're going to go ahead and grab that here, and we're going to tell Clear Estimates we need 4 of these. So keep in mind, if there's any adjustments you need to make to the part, to the description, to the cost, you can do that all from this window before you add the part in. So if we wanted to adjust anything about what it says in the software for us, we can do that with this description box. We can adjust the costs here if needed. And then down at the bottom, we can also adjust what prints on the proposal for our client. You always kind of want to focus on this formal box. This contains the text for the line item that's going to be shown to the client. It's automatically going to populate the part quantity for the client on the proposal. So if you do want to adjust any of the verbiage on the proposal, you can do that down here. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and add in those 4 steps. I think that knocks out just about everything on the deck build itself. So only thing remaining here is the painting. So we do want to stain the deck floor. We're going to stain the railing, and we're going to stain the steps. So we're going to go ahead and knock that out next. So back in the project here, I'm going to find some parts for exterior painting. That's where any kind of deck painting or staining is going to be found. So I'm going to click Browse Part Library again. Again, we could use the drop-down. We could kind of scroll through this list of cost categories, but in this case, I'm just going to type in exterior painting. That's going to filter for exterior painting. So we're going to go ahead and click that. And then using this middle drop-down, let's see what we have for decks. So obviously, we have some parts for painting deck or staining deck. So I believe we're going to go ahead and start off here with the deck floor. So we're going to go ahead and grab deck floor here, stain deck or porch floor. And what are my specifications for that? It's about 300 square feet, and we're going to be doing that with a brush, and we're applying 2 coats here. So let's see if we have a part for that. Yep, so stain wood deck or porch floor with a brush, 2 coats. That's just what I need. And then we're just going to reference our measurements again. So it's 300 square feet of that. That's what we need. So we're just going to price that out using 300 square feet. That's going to price out that staining work. So when we do come back a few weeks later after we build the deck for the client, then we're going to come back and stain it. This has already kind of been priced out in the estimate for the client here. So next we need stain deck railing. So we're going to be doing that. That's going to be a standard deck railing. We're going to also do that with a brush, 2 coats of stain. So we're going to come back in here. And then I'm just going to sort by deck pricing again. And then I have options here for stain deck or porch railing. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And we have options for standard or complex. So let's see here. So stain standard deck, porch railing with a brush, 2 coats. So that's right here. And then we're going to tell Clear Estimates our measurements. So it's actually 189 square foot. These are priced based on the square feet. So what we're doing is we're actually taking the height of our railing and we're multiplying it by the length to come up with our square footage here. So we're going to go ahead and type 189. That's going to price out the stain work on the deck railing. And we're going to add that part in. And then we have some steps we need to stain to. We're going to be doing that with a roll. That's going to be 2 coats. I've measured the surface area of my steps themselves. It's about 16 square feet of steps here. So let's go back into our exterior painting. We have stained deck steps right here. We're doing that with a roll. That's going to be 2 coats. So right here, we're going to grab that. We're going to enter in that 16 square feet. That's going to price that out for us, and we're going to add that part in. So the last things we need to do in this project here are just some finalization. We're going to be dumping some debris. Looks like about 4 to 5 cubic yards of debris I'm going to need to remove, as well as do a little bit of cleanup work here, about 100 square feet of cleanup. So we do have a category of parts specific to finalization. So I'm going to click my Browse Part Library button again. We're going to grab Project Finalization. This is where a lot of your cleanup items are found. This is where if you need to rent a dumpster, there's going to be fees for that, as well as loading, hauling, and dumping the debris. So I'm going to go ahead and click that option here. And what you'll notice about these parts is that they're all priced out in the piece, which means usually you're just going to define 1, 2, 3 quantity, depending on how many sets of these cubic yardages we need. So in other words, one of these parts is going to price out 4.5 cubic yards of debris cleanup. So rather than you enter the cubic yardage, it's kind of defined for you here in the description, and then it's giving you a cost per piece. So in layman's terms, what that means is that I'm just going to find how many cubic yards of debris I need to remove, and I'm going to click that part. And then it accounts for up to 4.5 cubic yards of debris in quantity 1 here. So I don't need to really add in any quantity. It's just sort of already populated that cost. So we're going to go ahead and add that part in. And then we had some general cleanup to do. So I'm going to click that middle drop down. We're going to say general cleaning. And I think if I scroll down a little bit past these sort of general cleanup parts, there should be a section specifically for deck or porch cleanup. So that's down here, again, kind of divvied up based on the square footage here. So in this case, we needed about 100 square feet of cleanup work here for our deck. And we're going to go ahead and grab that line item. So you'll see it's accounting for either up to 100 square feet. So anything below 100 square feet, I would use that part. In this case, it is 100 square feet of cleanup work I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to go ahead and use this part for 100 to 150 square feet. And we're going to go ahead and add that in as quantity 1. So that knocks out everything in my deck takeoff. So that's all said and done. We've kind of priced out everything in the takeoff, and we've got a really comprehensive cedar deck build here that we priced out for our client. But in this case, my client actually wants to know what the cost of a composite deck would be as well. So they're pretty sure that they want to go ahead with this cedar deck build, but they're curious about the cost of a composite deck. So we're going to actually show some options for the client on the proposal for a cedar deck build. We're going to do that using that alternates tool down here at the bottom we discussed earlier. This is what you can use to show the client a couple of different options. And to make things a little bit quicker and also show you how the templates work, we're actually going to use a composite deck template right here. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click Add Template. And that's going to pull up our template browser. So this is where you can kind of surf through all of the different templates that are included by Clear Estimates. There's no shortage of templates available. Excuse me. And everything similar to parts is going to be categorized. So we're seeing template categories for additions, for bathrooms, for demolitions, and of course for decking. So if we click decking, then using the middle dropdown, we can browse the different types of deck templates. So like we were talking about at the beginning, a template's just a pre-built estimate. It's sort of built to get you 80 or 90% of the way there, and then we can tailor it for that specific project. So there's a lot of different types of deck templates in here, and we're always adding more. We actually just added in a number of templates for replacement work, so rail replacement, for skirt replacement, for cleanup work. And then if we scroll down a little bit further, we'll find full deck build templates here. So again, a really nice starting point for really any deck estimate. And in this case, my client was curious about pretty much the same exact deck, but we're using composite materials. So we're going to go ahead and do deck composite, in this case, over 180 square feet. And when we click that, what we'll see is a number of suggested line items that we might need in this composite deck build. So you're going to see that's going to include a lot of the framing, the railing, the steps, as well as the surface, and pretty much anything that's remaining that isn't included in the template, we'd be able to add it from the library using the steps we were just talking about. What's great about the templates is that every part in a template contains formulas that tie back to this number right up here. So this actually allows us to type in the square footage of our deck surface and then just price out the quantities of all these parts based on that. So we're going to go ahead and type in 300 square feet, and we're going to calculate the quantities. We're going to see it's defined our quantities for each of these line items in the template. So from here, we could go through. If we wanted to make any adjustments to the quantity, we can click into that quantity column. If anything wasn't relevant to the project, we can uncheck it using these checkboxes on the left. So it gives you a really nice starting point. And then we can add in any additional items. As you can see, it doesn't really include much for digging the footings. It's not going to include anything for the cleanup or the dumping debris. So these are all things we can add in after we add the template in. So it's just a time-saving feature here. And if we scroll down, we have some options in terms of how to add this template to the project. We can add it in the main window with the rest of our estimate contents that we already added in. We can also add it as a component, which, like I said, is just a way to section out different phases. In this case, we're going to add it as an alternate because we're using it to show an option on the proposal. So that's just what alternates do. So we're going to add that as alternate, and we're going to go ahead and add the template in. If we scroll down to our alternate tool, we'll see that composite deck. We're going to go ahead and open that up using the pencil. It's going to show us all the line items related to that composite deck. Now, I've already kind of walked you through the process of adding single parts from the library, but if there was anything else remaining that we wanted to add in, so digging the footings, the cleanup work, if there was any extra cost, let's say we wanted to add that travel cost in, right here in the same window, we can do that the same way, either by searching for parts, creating them, or browsing from the library. To save a little bit of time here, we are just going to add in just a quick part for cleanup. The deck report cleanup, we'll just grab that. We'll say that's 300 square feet. We'll add that part in. And the same process would be true, let's say if we wanted to add in a part for digging the footings or so on, we would just compile the rest of the parts we need for this composite right here in this window. Because it's set up as an alternate, what this is going to do, it's going to keep this cost separate from the rest of the project, and then it's going to show it as an option on the proposal without figuring it into the cost of the cedar deck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this up here in the top right. I'm going to say composite deck. We're going to go back to main project. And let's go ahead and take a look at the proposal, and I'll show you what that does here. So we're going to go view report and print to PDF. That's going to show us our proposal. Again, we still need to come back here and customize this legal language, so we're going to do that here in just a moment. Then down below, it's sort of organized our entire estimate contents based on cost category here. So we're seeing all of our prep work, followed by all of our deck work down here below. And we have our exterior painting, again, that's for the cedar deck, and some finalization, and it's given us a project cost for the client. And then just below that, we'll see that we have this alternate here. So it gives the client an idea of what this cost is going to be. Again, I didn't add everything I needed for the composite into that alternate just to save a little time, but it is showing them the cost of any contents in that alternate here. Now, if you want to show the full details of the alternate line items, you can do that as well. So back here in Clear Estimates, we can come up to our options tool, and then under our report settings, we can check the option to include the alternate line item details. So that way they can see what all those costs are. We're going to go ahead and save. And then if we print our report one more time, we can take a look at what that looks like too. It's going to wait a second while that generates the proposal. So again, if we scroll down a little bit, we should be seeing all of the information about our alternate. So here it is with all of the items we included. And if we wanted to itemize these costs, we can include line item costs as well. You can do that in reports. But just by default, it's just going to show the total project cost without kind of itemizing everything. Some clients are a little more picky. They want to see the cost of everything. So we could always go into reports here, go into our formal tab over here on the right side, and you'll see an option to include line item costs on reports. So you can always check that if they do want to see the cost of every item. It's going to show those costs post markup. So back in the project, there is just a few more things we want to do before we send this out to the client. So I do want to double check my markup. So if I wanted to make any adjustments to my markup, let's say I wanted to tack on 60% for materials, 40% for labor, I could do it that way, or the reverse, or really any percentage you want to add in. So always just take a look at your markup settings. This is all going to account for your profit and overhead. And then if we scroll down a little bit, we do want to add in sales tax. So remember, those costs and those parts are all pre-markup and pre-tax. So we do want to add in a line here to account for sales tax. So we're going to do that using miscellaneous items. These are perfect for tax, for discounts, any extra percentage you want to add into your estimate. You can do that with miscellaneous items here. So we're going to go ahead and click this blue plus on the right side. It's going to open up this little window for add line item. This is really easy to just fill this out. So we can just say sales tax. Let's just say it's 6% sales tax. Then over on the right side, we can either define a dollar amount or a percentage. In this case, I'm going to do a 6% sales tax. And then down below, just keep in mind you have a bunch of different options for where to calculate that number from. I'm just doing it from the total cost before markup. You can also do it from the markup itself. The base bid is your number after markup. Running total is used for if you have multiple miscellaneous items. To keep it simple, we're just going to do actual total cost. It's going to give us the breakdown of the value of our tax item here. And then over here on the left, you'll see these check boxes. These just tell Clear Estimates where to put that item. So on the preliminary proposal, the formal proposal, subcontractor report, or the cost status report. In this case, I just want to make sure it's on my formal proposal. So we're going to go ahead and save that. That's going to add a 6% sales tax to the project. And the other thing I wanted to do was customize that contract language. So again, we were just looking at kind of some sample legal language up at the top. We're actually going to customize that. We're going to come up here to reports. Again, this looks like a clipboard. That's going to take us right to boilerplate. If we scroll down in this tool, we really just want to focus on this little box here for boilerplate information. This is where you're going to set up any legal language or agreement that you want included either at the beginning or at the end of your proposal. So what you'll see here is a number of sample contracts that we kind of included for you by default. So they're just intended to show you what your contract could look like and give you an idea of how it works. So these are examples. We don't want to include these for my client. What you'll notice is next to each of these headings, and as we click through these headings, you'll also notice it's going to populate the text for each heading here on the right. So you can have a couple different contracts set up, so that way you can kind of toggle back and forth depending on your needs. And you'll notice that there's these checkboxes for each of these headings. So for each of these headings, there's text, and then each of these headings, there's these checkboxes. Now, what these checkboxes are the different reports. So P is for preliminary, F is for formal, S is for subcontractor. So when we were looking at that proposal, we were taking a look at this text as well as this text. And the reason for that is because we see that the F checkbox is checked for both of these contracts. So we're just going to uncheck that there, and that's going to remove that from the formal proposal. And I'm going to add in my own. So I'm going to go ahead and add heading. I have an option to insert at the bottom of my heading list or ahead of selected heading. I'm just going to go ahead and add it at the bottom. It's going to add in this new heading. So we're going to go ahead and click that, and I'm going to give this a title. I'm going to call this General Agreement. So you can see right up here in the top right, I'm titling this using the heading box here. And then down below, we can add in our text. So we could either type this in or paste it from a different source. I actually do have an agreement already from my lawyer. My lawyer and I kind of walked through some legal language that I can use on my contract. So here is that contract. I'm going to go ahead and add it in. So I'm just going to select this text here. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to head back into boilerplate. I'm going to paste that in. And we're going to go ahead and save heading. That'll actually save for you automatically, but you can always click that button if you're not sure. And then all I need to do here is just click this F checkbox so that it shows up at the top of my proposal. Keep in mind you have options for intro or outro. Outro is usually reserved for things like your signature line. So if you want to adjust anything about that, you can do that here in outro. And in this case, we're just going to have that right at the top of the agreement here. So everything looks good. We're going to head back to projects. And let's take one last look at that proposal here. So we're going to go view report and print to PDF one more time. And here is my agreement. I have my logo at the top. I have my client information. I have my information. Then I have the contract I've added in. Here's the full contents of my estimate, as well as some options for the client and a total cost. And if they do want to go ahead with that cedar deck build, they can sign the agreement, send it back. So that about covers the process. Keep in mind when you're ready to send the agreement to your client, you can go ahead and do send to customer and send report to customer. Keep in mind when you're doing that, it's going to show you these little brackets with customer name and company name. Now you might think to yourself, oh, I guess I need to click into this and change this to my customer's name or my company name, but you actually don't have to. It's going to pull that automatically from the project details. So it's going to say, hi, John, in my case, and your estimate is ready from Mike's Contracting. Same thing down here in the body. It's going to say, hi, John, and then it's going to say, thanks, Mike's Contracting. And then if I wanted to adjust anything else about the email body, I can do that right here. And then I have an option to send this to myself as well if I want to take a look at that. So then we would just send the agreement off. Once you've sent the agreement, you can always check the status here in the send to customer dropdown under activity history. So that about wraps up our example today. At this point, we're going to go ahead and switch gears. And we're going to go ahead and head into our Q&A section. So let's see what kind of questions we have from the audience here. So we have a question from Mike. So he's asking, how is that relating the difference in cost of the two projects? I see the cost of each project is something that you just have to specify to the client, or is there a way the program will help do that? So what it's doing is it's showing you the total cost of the main project. So like I said in the beginning, they were pretty sure they want to go ahead with the cedar decks. Let's go ahead and look at that proposal again. So what I did was I set up the cost of the composite deck as an alternate, which shows some options. So they could take a look at the cost of the cedar deck here. So that's the main estimate contents here. So it's showing them this total cost. So that's the cost for the cedar deck. And then just below, we have the alternate cost. So this just shows them this as an option. So if they wanted to go ahead with the composite deck, they could, and it's showing them this cost, but this cost is not included in the total cost I set up. So it just gives you an option to show some different scopes of work and show the cost on the proposal without including it in the total project cost. Does that answer your question, or just please help me if I'm misunderstanding? I'm so sorry. So in other words, it is going to specify the cost for each section. So obviously, again, it's the total cost of the project here for the cedar deck build that we added in the beginning. And then down here at the bottom, it's just giving them this other option. If they wanted to go ahead with the composite deck, it would show them the cost of that. So it's just a way of sort of showing the options for those different scopes of work at the bottom. But just keep in mind that this cost isn't included in the total cost that we've shown as the main estimate here. Got it. And Mike says, if I understand correctly, how is the difference than what I present to the client as an alternate? It's the variance between the original cost and the ultimate cost. Okay, so that does make sense. Okay, great. So yeah, so once again, it's just, it does sort of differentiate the cost of the main estimate versus the alternate cost. And you can set up as many alternates as you need. So if you had multiple alternates, it would show the cost each separately. So each section would have its own cost figure. Great. Any other questions from the audience here? I'm not seeing much coming through. Well, keep in mind, just to wrap this up here, if you do have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us using this blue chat button down in the bottom right corner of your screen. You can also give us a call or send us an email at support@clearestimates. We're happy to set up a call with you, walk you through any additional questions you have. We can also do that via chat if you'd like to send in your questions. And again, a recording of this is going to be sent out to everyone that participated today. So thank you so much again for joining in. At this point, we are going to go ahead and conclude the presentation. But once again, feel free to reach out, and thank you guys so much for joining in.